Goeiemôre, good morning. Dis lekker ja nee, ons kan julle maar gesels met my. Hierdie is baie informeel. Welcome to the second Teksmark Joburg. It's so exciting to be back. Yes. And we are here in a new space. Well, not new to everyone in Joburg, but new for Teksmark. The UJ Art Centre. What an incredible space with incredible people who work here. Thank you in advance for everyone for making this possible here. You were incredible just from the beginning and so enthusiastic. And thank you for becoming a partner of Teksmark Joburg. Big applause. Just a quick, ons gaan so tussen Afrikaans en Engels vandag werk. I hope that's okay. Depending on the piece and depending on the person, the writer, we'll kind of switch languages. In general, I just want to welcome all of you. Thank you for coming. The whole idea of Teksmark is to talk about the script ideas and to give your feedback and to ask questions to the writers. I think they're very excited to share their ideas with you. I want to thank the writers for their bravery. I find it extremely intimidating to write, so I think it's always brave. And thank you for your courage, and thank you that we can present your pieces at Teksmark over the next 2 days. So you are the stars of the next 2 days. Thank you to the actors and directors who are participating and who have been rehearsing. En wat hierdie woorde van die papier af gaan lewe gee om dan die besprekings te doen. Vir die van julle wat nie wat dalk nie Teksmark heeltemal ken nie, net om agtergrond te gee, Teksmark is nou al 9 jaar oud in Kaapstad. Dit het 9 jaar begin. Ons het die 9de Teksmark by die Baxter gehou in September hierdie jaar. En volgende jaar sal dan nou 'n dekade wees. Ek kan amper nie glo dit is al 10 jaar nie. There's some people, Tracy, I think you were at the first Teksmark. Herschelle, I think you weren't even born yet. But I'm not sure whether you were there already. It is quite incredible to start a project 10 years ago, which the idea was literally for writers to be able to test their script ideas, not necessarily a full script, but just test the idea and how people respond to the themes, how people respond to the story, and to get feedback so that they then get the opportunity, hopefully, that the people with money, there's a lot of people with money that's sitting here, I can see you, can invest in the writers to have the time to actually go back and rewrite or write the full script and develop scripts that are fully developed for stage before I think we were in a kind of a rut where we forced scripts on stage, and we're trying to get out of that. And that is the idea. So it's a project for writers, and it's a project for collaboration, and it's a project to see how we can tell South African stories in the best way possible. Over the past 9 years, Teksmark has had a lot of successes with many plays that were produced and also won awards and also garnered a lot of praise from audiences, and we're very proud of that. I think, and the number is now out of my head, is it 30, how many did we count? Is it? Oh, fantastic. I had a different number, but great, yes. So it's really incredible, and what makes me proud is that it's working, and we are, next year is the 10th year of Teksmark, and we're going into a new phase where we're also going to see how we can get the funding to also do workshops throughout the year with writers. So, yes, so the people with funding, hello, I'm ready for the check outside. Let's start. Oh no, I need to thank our sponsors. Firstly, the Baxter, who's been the Cape Town partner for many, many years, from the beginning, Laura Foot, thank you for your encouragement and your support. And then also to Nati, who has been there from the beginning, who's been the partner with us to make this possible. Thank you, Cornelia Farson, and your board. You are incredible, and you're doing incredible work in South African theatre. And then also to the Artistieke, who's also come on board as a sponsor of this project. Thank you, Artistieke. I mean, everyone knows what kind of work you are doing and the incredible impact you have on South African culture. And then also, obviously, then our partner here in Johannesburg, UJ, Peter Jacobs and your team, thank you so much for your enthusiasm. And we are really honored to be here in this wonderful theatre. All right, let's start. The first writer is al 'n ou hand, alhoewel hy dalk nog nie gebore was met die eerste Teksmark nie, maar hy's 'n ou hand. Hy's 'n ou hand hierso by Teksmark en 'n baie suksesvolle skrywer en hy het verskillende hoedens wat hy dra nou in sy lewe, maar ek stel graag vir julle voor aan Herschelle Benjamin.
Dankie, Hugo. I'm just going to introduce the play. Die stuk wat hulle nou gaan doen is Julie Columbus, directed by Jade Bowers, met Ilse Klink en nog 'n akteur, Cassius Davids.
Twee jaar sedert ek uitgevind het met die groot kwaal. Die onvermydelike, uitputtende, verpustende kwaal. Dis wat ek doen. Met 'n kwaal. Om 'n kwaal te noem, is om 'n kleiner te maak van die grootsheid van. Die groot kwaal. Ons noem net meer op sy naam. Ons weier om het agency te gee, ons weier om het 'n naam te doen van. As jy die woord voluit spreek, voel dit asof die aarde dreun en die hemel bo word opgeruk. Die sandkorreltjies reis en die wind waai 'n helse spoed en alles spat in rigtings oral rond. Dis 'n storm hierdie ding. Kanker kom woed deur jou lyf soos onkruid. Geen skoffel kan dit uitruk. Dit saai verwoesting in al jou geliefdes se lewens ook. Hoe sê hulle? It takes no prisoners. Maar ek weier. Ek sal nie dat hierdie ding my onderkry nie. Ek sweer tot by die opperste dele van die hemel dat geen kleine kontjie kwaal sal my onderkry nie. Ek was alleen. In 'n hoek gedruk soos 'n ondier. 'n Malaatse. Ek was alleen. Ek was al tot die uiterste van mag en krag gedruk, leeg getap soos 'n vrug van al sy sap, o God. Ek was alleen. Daai klein verwarde dogtertjie. 'n Weggooi kind, weesloos. Daai kleine Mina Afrika. Wat by die agterdeur gelos is, by Sera en Erik de Graaf, hulpeloos, ontneemde, miskende. kalambes onder te kry. Vat jou kans. Kry jou hou in, maar onthou Pelly, wie laaste lag, lag die lekkerste. Ek het vandag 'n bietjie pyn in my bene. Nog voordat dit ontdek is, het ek hierdie verskriklike pyn in my linkerste voet gekry, maar ek het dit altyd vir myself gehou. Wat se kok kan dan nou hinkepink in die kospotte? Nee, wat? Mens moet rats wees binne jou kombuis. Jou ingesteldheid is altyd op die prit van die potte en die reuke. O ja, so ingestel op die reuke wat die vertrek besit. Dit was nog altyd my skuilings, my plek van healing. Hier is ek in beheer, ongeag die pyn in my been.
Trek maar se sloffies aan.
Julle weet ook van sloffies, hè? Daar's niks lekkerder en gemakliker so sloffies by die huis nie.
Ja, toe maar.
Ja. Dis skommel. My enigste baby. Al te onmiskenbaar en oorbeskermend. Wat veg oor dit en dat. Hy worry oor sy mammie. Ek wens baie keer hy wil my net uitlos. Maar dan onthou ek ons verlore tyd. Toe ek hom as baba by die agterdeur gelos het.
Dit ruik lekker.
Net lekker. My boene biryani is alles behalwe lekker. 'n koppie tee is lekker. Imagine. Ansera het touwys gemaak van kos wat mense wil hê. Bredies, curries, smoortjies, snoek, biryani, gebakte vis. Daai was die dag van distrik 6. Sy heyday vir die bulldozers. Dit was betowerend, vuil en vervalle, ja, altyd aan raas en beweeg, maar die atmosfeer, die mense, daar was community en 'n vreugde vir die lewe, wat uit swaar kry gebeur het. Dit was amper soos ek imagine Times Square in New York City moet wees. Die klein winkeltjies met spices en smouse en die groente en visverkopers. Sarah se koffie. Dit was my skuilings vir my en die baba in my maagie. Sy het altyd geweet waar om die vaste vis en die lekkerste knoffelbolle te kry. My speciality was gebak. Ek het 'n swartpot gemaak met die koffie, vir die koffie waarop ons specials geadverteer het, soos koeksisters en curryvis, tamatiebredie, en dan 'n Dylan. Dylan en sy bende het elke aand teen toemaaktyd die patrons half skiek kom beloer, om seker te maak dat niemand mors met ons nie. Hulle was ons beskermhede teen molesmakers. Dylan. Ek het die skoot sommer hoog deur gehad met hom. Dylan Appels.
Hello my beauty.
Dis hoe hy my gewoonlik gegroet het, en dan vat hy my vlegsel en draai dit om sy vingers. Hy het nie geworry oor die bultende maagie nie. Hy het gelyk soos Johnny Elvis, altyd met 'n denkbeeldige gitaar, singend. Hy was nie soos die ander nie.
Trou met my Julie.
Dylan, wat sien jy in my? Kyk hoe lyk ek.
Ek gee nie om oor die baby nie. Ek sal hom groot maak soos my eie. 'n Kind moet 'n pa hê.
Ek weet nie, Dylan. Ek hou van jou. Jy's baie goed vir my en vir Ansera, maar ek trou nie met 'n gangster nie.
My Julie.
Hy het my hand vasgegryp en my vasgehou.
Ek weet ek is 'n skollie. Ek weet hulle ken my baie goed daar in Roelandstraat. Ek wil hy liewe los, Julie, ek sweer.
Vir hoe lank?
Vir altyd.
Luister, ek moet gaan werk.
Luister. Daar's 'n ou basie in Langstraat met 'n signwriting business. Partykeer help ek hom.
Ek kon nie my glimlag wegsteek nie. Weet hy wie en wat jy is, Dylan?
Nee, natuurlik nie. Maar hy wil vir my 'n vaste job gee, jy sien. Julie, die ou man wil retire en dan is ek die baas.
Dylan, jy lieg mos nou. Jy
Luister.
kan mos nie 'n baas van 'n business in Langstraat wees nie.
Jy luisterie. Sy seun gaan die plek by hom koop. Maar hy ken niks van signwriting, hy's 'n ingenieur of so iets. En dan is ek die manager, jy sien.
Alles in my het verhelder. My dimpels het verskyn. Dylan was bekend as 'n messteker en inbreker. Maar vir my het hy nooit gevaarlik gelyk nie. Hy het my altyd sag behandel. Ek kon nooit die stories glo van die pygerins wat van hom vertel het nie. Maar soms sit hy en sy bende verdwyn, net verdwyn. Weggeraak in die Kaap. Die polisie het ook vir hulle by Ansera se koffie kom soek. Maar Dylan is wonderlik. Maar hoe weet jy van signwriting af, hè?
Een keer was ek lank in die tronk. Hulle is so besig met 'n eksperiment. Hulle wil die ountjies iets probeer leer. Toe leer hulle my signwriting. Sien jy Ansera se bordjie daar buite? Wat dink jy van my skrif?
Ek het al gewonder hoe jy altyd so mooi kon skryf.
Wat sê jy? Ek het dan 'n proper job, ek kry vir so 'n ordentlike huisie, baie van jou, waar kinders mooi kan groot word.
Maar in jou kop besluit jy mos self wie en wat jy wil wees. 'n Mens kies self om goed of sleg te wees.
Het jy ook gekies om pregnant te raak? Jou stories dat jy geryp was.
Dit's waar.
En my stories ook waar.
Hy sy storie vir my vertel. Van sy ma, die donder se whiteys en hoe hulle hom na haar afsterwe weggejaag het. Daarom Goodwood. Hy was 10 jaar oud. Liewe Here, 10 jaar oud. Dis waar die nare lewe van begin het. Op die straat en 'n life of crime. Hy was maar 'n sagte seentjie.
En is nie net vroumense wat geryp word, die Julie.
Ek wou niks verder hoor nie. Ek kon hom amper nie glo nie. Die wit mense wat ek geken het my groot gemaak en my geleer dat ek enigiets in die lewe kan wees. Die De Graafs van die Heksriviervallei het vir Teacher Maraai 'n 2-vertrek huisie op hul werf omring met wingerdblokke staat gemaak tot die einde van haar lewe. Ek was Mina 'n wit gat. Soos die breinkinders my gekog het. Totdat Skuman Oortse van die Heksriviervallei my soos 'n meid geryp het. Mina Afrika was weg.
Maar se boek is nommer 1 in die hele Suid-Afrika. Julie Columbus, My Heritage, My Story. Maar die boek doen goed en die YouTube quote video's ook.
Ja,
Daar's maar se kop.
nee, daar is sommer by 'n resep. Moet nie worry nie. Dis asof alles skielik kosbaar word. Elke oomblik van jou lewe. Mens moet elke oomblik waardeer. Veral die oomblikke sonder pyn. Soos om 'n stort te vat, regtig te voel hoe die waterdruppels teen jou rug afloop. Om op 'n stoel te sit en kos te eet. Om 'n movie te kyk van begin tot einde sonder pyn. Dis in hierdie klein oomblikke waar die verlede nie 'n kat se kans staan nie. Jy bask in appreciation met 'n vet glimlag. My seun Skuman weet van my verlede. Sy kom vandaan. Die arm klonk het moeilik gehad. Maar wat ek aan hom gedoen het. Ek het regtig gedink dit was die beste vir hom. Nie vir my nie, maar vir hom. Ja, ek het hom soos 'n rondprop kat gaan los by die oets in sy agterplaas, maar ek het gehoop hulle sal hom welsyn toeneem, dat iemand hom sal aanneem, iemand met 'n huis, miskien sou hy sy eie bedjie in die nag gehad. Wat kon ek hom tog bied? 'n Lewe sonder uitsigte, waarin hy 'n outsider sal wees. Hy was gemeng met sy pa se wit bloed en my breinbloed. Hy was 'n ongewenste vlek. Hy was 4 weke oud en het steeds nie 'n naam gehad nie. Almal het hom Boetjie genoem. Ek was depressief. Daar was nie daai tyd 'n naam daarvoor nie. En almal anders het goed vir die kind gedoen. Doeke omgedraai, bottels warm gemaak. En dan sê was gatvol vir my. En dit het my net hartseer gemaak. Sy het gesê die Here gaan my nog straf omdat ek so ongevoelig was teenoor die bloetjie. En hy was stroopsoet. Hy was 'n gesonde seentjie. 'n Ware seun van die Here. Maar hy was 'n kind van 'n ryk. En dis al waaroor ek kon dink. Hulle het nie my volle storie geken nie, maar hulle het geweet daar's iets anders met hierdie boetjie. Eendag stap ek af in Adeliesstraat. Tot by Herengraaf. Tot by die hawe. See toe. Moet die pissie waters hierso. Is dit maklik om te verdrink as 'n mensie kan swem nie, dan sit seker gou verby. Er is geen mense hier naby nie en sal my lyk uitspoel na die skoon oop see toe of sal hulle my hier uitvis. Julie se Columbus sal dood wees. Miskien sal iemand na my huisie in Woester toe gaan soek en uitvind dat daar nooit iemand soos Julie Columbus was nie. En Mina Afrika sal ook uiteindelik en finaal uit Afrika verdwyn. Voel asof die wind vinnig sterker word. Die grys wolke kleed stoot oor Tafelberg soos 'n reuse vloedgolf. Die kind spook by my. Sy gesiggie sal ook seker eendag vol sproete wees soos sy pa. En daardie ligblou oogies wat nooit soos ander bruin babas en donkerder sal word nie. Nee, daar is nie 'n ander weg nie. Daar is nie 'n ander oplossing nie. Ek kan nie met Dylan trou nie. Nie vir die kind se onthaalwe nie. Veral nie vir die kind se onthaalwe nie. Ek vat my rok so en vaser teen die wind. Die water in die hawe is rusteloos. Ek kyk na die koue blou-swart water met die olie reënboog. Ek trek my nader. Ek voel duiselig. Nou sal ek net ingly, saggies, sodat niemand my kan hoor nie, net vashou aan die buitebande. En dan ingloei in die besoedelde water. Wegsak. En alles vergeet.
Ons moet wag vir die mikrofone sodat dit word op gestream. Sjoe, dankie Herschelle. Dankie aan Matthias en Jade. Herschelle, is dit die eerste keer wat jy net nou sien of het jy 'n rehearsal gesien?
Ek het 'n rehearsal gesien.
Wie?
Nee, ek is happy. Ja, ek is baie happy. Ek dink dit is baie mooi gedoen. Leaves you wanting more.
Gewoonlik met die inleiding, dan sê die skrywer 'n bietjie meer. Jy het besluit om nie dit te doen nie. So wil jy nou sê van, ek dink, ek wil baie nuuskierig om te weet waar die gedagte gekom om Mina se storie te vertel, en waar die idee vandaan.
Ja, so ek het in die begin nie vertel nie, want ek weet mense het 'n sekere persepsie van die boek Mina Afrika en is glad nie wat ek hier probeer doen nie, maar die idee het gekom, actually 'n vriendin se ma het my gevra, wat doen ek nou, wat skryf ek volgende, en ek het gesê nee, ek werk maar net in die werk, en toe vertel sy vir my van, sy het in 'n ouer huis in Woester gebly, vir blindes, en hulle het RSG vervolg dramas in die middag geluister. Mina Afrika was een van die groot dramas daar. En sy het so 'n bevoering gegaan oor hierdie stuk en sy sê, die ou mense het elke middag, hulle was obsessief om hierdie storie te luister. Ek dink dit was in 2007 of so voort. En die sê van, maar ek het hierdie boekie, nou sê ek baie geïnteresseerd en ek wil weet wat dit is, en ek het aanlyn gaan kyk en ek kon nie lekker die volle verhaal kry nie, maar ek sê toe vir wyle Dr. Anastasia de Vries by Cassius, die idee van ek soek die boek en ek wil graag dit lees, en sy stuur toe vir my die boek op en ek lees dit toe, en ek het dit vinnig gelees en ek het baie van die storie gehou en dit was eintlik vir my spesiaal gevoel dat ek dit nou ontdek, want ek weet daar's party skole wat dit ook doen, maar die gedeelte in die boek wat my die meeste getref het, is wanneer Mina Afrika Kaapstad toe gaan. Ek dink dis in die 60, 70 jaar, en sy word Julie Columbus, want sy hardloop weg van die dorings en Excerpt met die baba, en sy dink dis die beste ding, en niemand weet eintlik, die mense by die huis weet nie wat sy in die Kaap doen, en sy probeer om te oorleef, en die gedagte het toe gesprei, toe ek klaar die boek gelees het, ek het gewonder in die boek eindig met Julie, wat soort van terugkom huis toe, en dan werk sy by 'n restaurant op die dorp, die Oetsen se restaurant, maar hulle weet nog steeds nie, sy is die eintlike man, en ek weet, daar is ook 'n tweede boek, maar ek was soos, vir tydlyn en vir Teksmark, ek was soos van, my eerste gedagte is, ek wonder, wie is Julie Columbus vandag? Hoe lyk hierdie vrou, waar is sy, en die feit dat Mina Afrika en die storie van kos so belangrik was in die boek, was ek soos van, ek het net in my kop gedink, maybe is sy, jy weet, 'n kos-influencer, jy weet, en selfs toe ek vir Jade, ek moet krediet gee aan Jade, want hierdie is nie die gedeelte wat ek gestuur het vir Teksmark nie, maar toe ek en Jade daaroor praat, en toe sê Jade vir my, maar wat as Fatima Saido soort van 'n reference is? En toe gaan my kop weer, en eintlik wou ek maar net kyk, wie is die vrou vandag, en wat se storie kan sy vir ons sê, nie noodwendig heeltemal net van die verlede nie, maar hoe sy deel met hierdie gesondheidskrisis van die kanker, en ook hierdie seun wat in haar lewe ingekom het, en hy het ook 'n verskriklike storie, en hoe hulle in 'n manier 'n familie wou bou. Ek dink dit is die groot tema vir my. Dit gaan oor hulle albei, maar Julie ook as 'n ouer vrou, het ook nooit getrou nie in my kop, en haar soek vir liefde op 'n ouer ouderdom. So dit is al die goeders wat vir my gedink het, okay, skryf net enigiets wat in die kop en kom, en ek het die boek. Gedeeltes is uit die boek uit, en ander is oorspronklike gedeeltes wat ek geskryf het.
En hoe ver is jy geskryf in die volle teks? Want ek het Sessie is 'n uittreksel hier. Ek weet die uittreksel wat ons gehad het, om na te kyk en te evalueer. Maar hoe ver is die teks?
So die teks is omtrent 15 bladsye, en dit was letterlik net na ek en Jade gepraat het, en ek het gaan herskryf, en toe wou ek die hele bly skryf, maar toe sê ek vir myself, nee, stop, want ek is baie meer geïnteresseerd as dit gedoen word en met wie dit gedoen moet word en wat die proses daar kan wees. En om 'n klein stukkie van die herskryf wat die Maasai te gaan research was, daar's baie en ek wou dit nie heeltemal klas kry nie, want ek het gehoop na hierdie kan ek nog steeds dit ontwikkel en klas kry as
En van daai navorsing doen.
en daai navorsing doen, ja.
Wat daar in spesifieke tydperke en
Presies, ja.
ek wil baie graag ook maak vir ek wil nie te veel praat of vra nie. Ek kan baie lank met Herschelle praat. So, ek wil baie graag ook maak vir kommentaar met wat jy gesien het, wat Herschelle sê, as jy vra het, asseblief neem deel. Ek weet Saartjie is daar reg bo. Saartjie, ons moet op die mikrofone praat, want daar is 'n mikrofoon.
Herschelle, dis die eerste keer wat ek iets sien van jou waar die hoofkarakter ouer is. Jou vorige werk is jy baie gefokus op, en ek neem aan mense doen dit ook want jy wil vir jou vriende werk skryf jy vir jonger spelers. Wat het hierdie skryf gemaak en voel dit vir jou gemaklik, want ek dink jy het dit absoluut soemloos gedoen.
Ek kan nie, ek kan nie presies sê hoekom nie, maar ek was ek dink ek was net geïnteresseerd in wie sy vandag sou wees. Dit is hoekom sy vir my ouer is, hierdie ouer vrou en ek weet dit is dalk weird, ek is nou baie jonk en 'n man, maar ek was dit het my geïnteresseerd hoe haar lewe dalk sou wees. Ek het net hierdie storie begin opmaak en ek wou haar kom bysien en ek wou haar so eintlik is dit maar die boek se ek moet maar vir die boek krediet gee om wat my gelei het om te dink sy is ouer. Ek het nie 'n antwoord op of ek dit reg doen dat sy ouer is nie, maar dit is vir my iets anders van my gewone werk. En daar's 'n romanse, daar's 'n nostalgie, 'n sentimentaliteit, daar's 'n afgewaterheid by die lewe en ek dink vir lank tyd was ek ook daar. Jy weet, wat word jou lewe in rotine en wie word jy as jy ouer word? Ek word amper 30. So ek dink daai ek weet nie of jy oud nie, maar ek dink kan seker goed. Wie gaan ek wees as ek ouer is? Gaan ek was so Julia alleen bly en I don't know. Ja, so dit is wat deel van die
En nou maak jy heeltemal 'n gesprek oop. Dit is ek wil aansluit by Saartjie, maar dit is wonderlik dat jy ook jy weet dat jy dat daai skryf ook in jou skryf het. En dit is dit is so mooi geskryf. En ek dink ek wou eintlik ek dink die uittreksel wat 'n klein bietjie langer is wat dit mag wees, Jade. Maar ons vergewe julle. Want ek wou graag meer gesien het en dit is altyd dit is wat die mens wil hê. Is daar nog 'n hand? Tracy. Kom miskien net Tracy voor jy sê, daar ons het Teksmark sê die stukke word gestuur na die I'm going to say this in English. It's sent to all the evaluators. We've got a panel, which Tracy Saunders was one of them, and I'm going to introduce the others quickly, who's here. And they get these plays without the names of the writers. So they really get the plays anonymously so that there's no preconceived ideas of what to expect of this writer. So they really don't know. Even if they know Herschelle's work before, they might not have known that this is actually Herschelle that wrote it. And I just want to say thank you. They had to read through and evaluate 120 plays, script ideas, and eventually 15 were chosen for Teksmark in Cape Town and 15 for Teksmark Joburg. Just quickly, it was Johan de Beer, Cornelia Farsen, Tracy Saunders, Leanne van der Rooy, who is also here, and Rahim Whiskery. Thank you to the work you've done. So, Tracy, over to you.
Thanks, Herschelle. I mean, I always love your writing, and particularly the way you have that kind of combination of personal and political. Now you tell a bigger story, which is such time and detail. I'm interested to know how much the book how much of a book you'll bring into the final text, and also having managed to listen to the radio drama and has that influence the final text.
Tracy, I haven't listened to the radio drama, and that was a choice I made just for time to get something on page, because sometimes I also get overwhelmed by too much research. But I think that the flashbacks are now sort of parts of the book. Definitely the characters. So I'm trying to limit it sort of to have the combination of about 70% or the book, or 60% the book and 40% original writing. But that also depends on where the story goes and how it will pan out. So the one character plays multiple men. And one of the men is also Deur, which is also a big character in the book. He's also older and he comes back, and it's a love story. So it's definitely there, but there's also the pertinent question of Julie and the cancer and reconciling with her son. So I'll have to see in the book and how much I don't need it.
Thank you.
Comment van Kobus?
Baie geluk Herschelle, dis regtig pragtig en baie teer. Ek ken nou die vervolgverhaal. Simonay Benjamin het Mina Afrika vertolk en dis my asof jy daai broosheid van Mina Afrika amper gechannel het. So pragtig deurgebring. En ek dink ook Mina Afrika is 'n tipe van 'n legende. Dis sy soos 'n Suid-Afrikaanse heldin. En dit is ook hoekom die storie soveel mense aangeroer het. Ek dink dit is ek dink daar's baie mense wat nie die storie ken nie of dalk die boek ken nie, maar wel baie luisteraars, hulle vra nog steeds, hulle wil dit weer hoor. Maar ek dink jy het iets ongeloofliks oopgeskryf en dit is, ek dink omdat haar lewe soveel fases en fasette het, en dat jy haar ook skets as 'n baie sterk vrou. Dit was vir my die mense daai teerheid gehad, die broosheid, die seer van haar kom vandaan, maar dan jy vat dit nou verder, jy het vir ons sê hoe sy oorleef, want sy het Kaap toe gegaan. So regtig waar, ek kan jy nie vir ons gou die res gee nie asseblief, maar wel gedaan.
Kan jy 'n nuwe vervolgverhaal wees? Ja. Is daar nog 'n kommentaar?
Ek wil net sê verskriklik baie dankie dat jy vir 45 of 50 plus skryf, want ons is nog nie dood nie. Ons lewe nog en ons het baie stories nog binne ons om te wys. Baie dankie. Ek het die teks geloof. Eerlikwaar, dit voel vir my asof dit iets anders vir ons gaan gee as Suid-Afrikaners. Baie dankie.
Dankie Dan.
Right back. Is it Henry? Hallo Henry. Lekker dat jy hier is.
Hallo. Herschelle, baie geluk. Baie nice. Hoorie, ek wil net vra, ek sien 'n neiging in die opvoer van teater wat nie solostukke is nie, oor die feeste, oor die 6 feeste heen. 'n Styl wat besig is om, ek weet nie of dit 'n nuwe styl is en of dit ontwikkel nie, maar ek noem dit leesteater. Ek weet nie of daar 'n beter term is daarvoor nie. Jy weet, mense, as ek net 'n paar stukke kan opnoem, as mens dink aan onder 'n bloedrooi hemel, Veeloek, dan was haar stuk, ek kan nooit die vrou se van onthou nie, Madame T en die passie van Chopin, aansteek die Rubicon oor, al daai, dat soos in jou stuk, dan wil ek wil net vra, gaan daar, as die gordyn opgaan, baie gepraat met die gehoor wees, as 'n solo persoon, binne 'n multicast stuk. Is die rede daarvoor die tendens deesdae dat vanweë finansiële oorwegings dat 'n mens is beperk om dit te doen in steede van om die hele stuk met dialoog te bewapen. Want daar is so baie solo stukke wat 'n mens dan sien op die feeste waar natuurlik die persoon dan direk met die gehoor praat die hele tyd. En sou jy sê, Benjamin, dat as jy die vryheid gehad het om meer geld te hê, meer karakters te kan skep, dat jy heeltemal kan wegdoen met die aanspreek van die gehoor styl. Daar's niks mee verkeerd nie. Ek is nie besig om dit te kritiseer hoe genaamd nie, maar is my net 'n tendens wat ek sien ontstaan. En miskien kan van die ander feeshoofde inkom hier en selfs Cornelia met befondsing en dat 'n mens nie 'n skrywer miskien te veel aan bande lê. Ek weet jare gelede het ek residentie gedoen. Ek het 'n cast van 17 mense gehad, waarvan die meeste was leerders en dan 'n klomp professionele spelers, maar dat 'n mens nie jou stuk en jou inhoud beperk en aan bande lê. Hoe voel jy as skrywer daaroor dat jy miskien daardeur omgrens word? In die lig van byvoorbeeld hierdie 4 stukke wat ek genoem het, is maar net voorbeelde. En ek sou graag wil weet van die ander feeshoofde en van jou ook, Hugo, of dit nou, jy weet, want dat 'n mens nou teater gaan beperk tot, daar's nie baie pratende karakters op die verhoog nie. Ons moet hulle beperk dat een mens speel 5, 6 rolle en dan die ander persoon is baie keer, of 90, baie groot persentasie van die tyd besig om direk met die gehoor te praat, en die 4de muur te breek en amper wat ek noem 'n leesteater tipe effek te skep. En hiermee weer eens, ek kritiseer nie die inhoud van waarmee jy besig is nie. Ek praat oor die vryheid van jou as 'n dramaturg.
Henry, ek dink dit is 'n persoonlike een vir my, want die vorige regisseurs en akteurs aan wie ek gewerk het, ek het altyd my tekste in realisme geskryf, selfs in slawehuis, Dakile vlakte, ek het dit gesien daar in Dakile plaas. So dit was 'n persoonlike ding vir my, in die kort tydjie nou met Jade, was sy net gesê dat let's lift it away from that. So ek sukkel verskriklik om uit die realisme uit te kom, en dit is amper vir my natuurlik om die prentjies te sien en die dialoog te skryf en die verhoogaanwysings, soos ek geleer was by drama skool, en ek werklik baie met my praat is besig van die tyd los van daai bande van realisme, want dan gee dit vir die regisseur en die spelers amper meer om mee te doen en te speel, om goed te wys, om simboliek soms te wys, om vir die akteurs om uitdaging te hê om 4 of 3 karakters te speel. Ek is ook gefascineer en ek hou baie van daai teaterstukke ook, waar jy dit kan sien, en die regisseur se kreatiwiteit lig die teks van die blad af. So ek het nie persoonlik gevoel ek moes dit inry, of jy weet, minder maak, nee, ek dink ek is baie bewus van, ja, ek wil hê die plek moet gedoen word, ek wil ekonomies skryf dat dit opvoerbaar is in 'n begroting, so ek is bewus van daai goed, en meeste van die tyd is ons om in die middeweg tussen dit te vind, en om nog steeds kreatief te wees in die skryfwerk. Maar dit is 'n persoonlike ding. Ek dink na die tyd dan gaan 'n mens na die feeste toe in die hoofde en jy kyk wat is moontlik, en as jy daai vrye teels gegee word op meer geld, dan amper kan jy, maar ek het nie 'n aanspreeklikheid op, ek maak nie aanspraak dat ek baie geld wil hê om 'n ding te doen. In hierdie geval met die leesteater hou ek van die boek, so die element van die boek wou ek ook teruggee as die plek opgevoer word aan die gehoor. So ek wil hê 'n ouer generasie wat dalk die boek gelees het en die radio vervolgverhaal geluister het, dat hulle soort van die romanse van die boek weer onthou en ingaan met dit. En dat 'n nuwe generasie dan ook dit so ontdek en dan van stuk af na die boek toe kan gaan. So ek het nie 'n presiese antwoord op daai terme van die feestekring en so voort nie, maar dit was net persoonlik vir my hierdie keer 'n uitdaging. Ek weet dit is 'n uitdaging vir my as 'n skrywer om net soms los te kom van die realisme of die naturalisme in die teks self.
Ek gaan vinnig met ek dink dit is 'n belangrike vraag wat jy vra, Henry, en dit is 'n baie lang gesprek, so ek kan nie nou heeltemal dat ons daarin gaan nie, want dan gaan ons heeltemal agterraak. En as daar een van die ander mense is wat hier is van die feeste se kant af, wat jy dan spesifiek van ons terugvra, asseblief sê gou as jy wil kommentaar lewer. Wat ek wel wil sê is dat ek dink een van die stukke wat jy byvoorbeeld nou genoem het is, daar is keuse gemaak uit styl en uit deur die skrywers, uit die behoefte van wat hulle gehad het. Ek weet nie van almal nie, maar ek bedoel dit was daar seker redes hoekom dit so is. Natuurlik is daar beperkings soms in groot stukke met te veel cast. Ek bedoel dit is veel kostig gewys, raak dit duur om baie groot cast na feeste toe te bring. So dit speel 'n rol uiteindelik in hoe jy daarmee deel. Ek sou nie graag wil hê dat ons dat die feeste en die befondsing uiteindelik bepaal dat 'n mens net in 'n vorm van 'n monoloog tipe van teater ingaan. En ek dink dis wat jy vra, jy weet, bekommernis by jou, dat mense in daai tipe van ding, mense wil nie dit, mense wil altyd ook in dialoog, jy weet, mense wil tog dialoog en daai interaksie en daai konflik hê. So die antwoord is meer kompleks, en ek dink daar is soms wat 'n mens is, jy weet, met 'n regisseur werk of jy weet 'n skrywer om iets te probeer kry waar daar 'n cast van 20 is, dat dit net kan afbring na 'n kleiner cast toe, so dan gaan jy in multi-rolle wat gespeel word en so meer. Maar dit is, jy weet, maar dit is nie altyd die geval nie. Mense probeer skrywers definitief die geleentheid gee om te kan skryf in 'n styl en op 'n manier wat hulle voel die storie vertel moet en kan word. En het woord van my kant, dink Saartjie gaan graag 'n kommentaar lewer. En is daar iemand anders wat baie graag daarop nou wil antwoord, want dan gaan ek aanbeweeg daarna. Saartjie, jy die laaste woord.
Ek kan nie namens al die feeste sê nie, maar ek weet regtig nie van enige iemand wat na 'n begroting kyk en sê, julle het 6 akteurs, julle kan nie 3 kry. Maak 'n plan. Ek dink nie dit werk so nie. Baie keer maak skrywers, ek het al vir skrywers gesê, hoorie so, ek dink regtig jy wil eintlik nog 2 spelers kry, en dan sê hulle nee, hulle wil hê dit moet so wees. So daar's ook konseptuele keuses, en uiteraard wil mense hê die stukke moet 'n lewe hê, en reis- en verblyfkoste beïnvloed dit, die lewensduur van 'n stuk, as dit te groot is. Ek wil iets anders sê, en ek dink dit is miskien 'n meta-antwoord op wat jy gevra het, Henry, en dit is dat ons het die opkoms van posttraumatiese teater gehad in Europa rondom 2000, en dit het misluk omdat daar nie emosionele ontlading is nie. So ek dink wat ons nou sien is soort van die positief van posttraumatiese teater, waar daar soort van 'n benutting van die verteller is. En die verteller kan op allerlei maniere funksioneer en vir die gehoor inligting gee, maar dan dit kan dit nie volhoubaar doen vir die duur van 'n stuk nie. So dan vat die dramaturg die geleentheid waar daar dan wel dramatiese tonele in dialoog uit mekaar speel. Ek dink nie ons kry dit altyd ewe goed reg nie, maar dit is inderdaad 'n nuwe neiging, en dis nie net hier nie, dit gebeur oral in die wêreld. Wat die tekorte van postdramatiese teater wel met dramatiese spel opgehef word. En ek dink nie dit is sleg nie, ek dink dit is 'n interessante manier van storie vertel. Ek dink nie daar's al regtig genoeg daaroor gedink om dit behoorlik te integreer en 'n volwaardige styl op sigself te maak. Maar dit is definitief nie net beperk tot Suid-Afrika nie.
As ons in 'n ander sessie dalk tyd het om weer daaraan te raak, en ek is seker dit gaan nog weer gebeur hier met die leesteater, dan kan ons die gesprek 'n bietjie aanvat in 'n ander sessie. Herschelle, van my kant af baie dankie. Ek wil amper vir jou sê, wat ek hoop vir jou is dat jy, en ek kan vir jou sê dat van KKNK se kant af sal ons definitief in so 'n stuk belangstel om jou te help om dit te ontwikkel. En ek hoop jy kry die geleentheid om 'n lang tyd te vat om jou navorsing te doen, te skryf, jy kan die keuses maak, verskillende weergawe daarvan te skryf. En oor 'n jaar dit op te voer. Dat dit nie, want ek weet jy weet daar's tye wat 'n mens gedruk word om iets te doen.
Ja.
Maar kyk wat gebeur en ek hoop jy het die tyd om jy weet en dat jy kan tyd neem daarmee want ek dink dit kan 'n uitsonderlike stuk wees. Baie dankie. Qondiswa, where are you? No, that's Jade. Qondiswa, are you somewhere?
Oh, that's it.
Backstage. Okay. Whilst we wait, wil ek net ook baie dankie sê en ook verwelkom want niks van dit ons hier doen kan gebeur. Die hele idee is dat mense kyk na tekste en wie weet in stuk.
No, you can finish.
And there's partners that also invest because it means that if more than one theatre and more than one festival actually invest in a script and ultimately in the production, it makes it more possible to develop new work. So ek wil baie dankie sê en ook hulle verwelkom aan die kunstefeeste wat hier is. Daar's verskillende befondsers wat ook hier is, maar ek wil net nou die kunstefeeste uitsorteer. Ek wil julle nie uitsorteer nie. Ons kan saam dinge hopelik uitsorteer. Staatjie Botha, die Woordfees, baie welkom. Daar jy Stellenbosch Woordfees is Staatjie. Dat ek daar net reg kry. Alexa Strachan van Momentum Beleggings Aardklop. Ons het ook vir die Bosfees vir Sandra Jacobs en Vilna Skols. Skielik kan ek nie van onthou nie Vilna Skols. Baie welkom. Ook aan Mel. Jy sê ek is heeltemal. Waar is my kop? Meld, baie welkom van die Suidoosterfees wat hier verteenwoordig word en ek weet die National Arts Festival sal ook later verteenwoordig hê en ek weet Michael Garvey is hier, Michael is op pad van die Vrystaat Kunstefees. Baie dankie vir julle teenwoordigheid, ek dink dit is baie belangrik dat julle hier is. Goed, let me introduce our next writer and are you feeling the stand or
No,
you've got the fantastic. Qondiswa James,
Yes, that's it.
over to you.
Thank you.
Let me take this.
Hi everybody, I've got my notes, so if I keep referring to my phone, I've got my notes. So I'm Qondiswa James. I'm the writer and director of eMalahleni, the Black Lung, which is a story about people's lives in mining or mining affected country areas, specifically the coal belt in Mpumalanga, which is actually called the Black Lung of South Africa. So me and a friend of mine who's actually in the cast, a couple of years ago, I started reading about the just energy transition in the context of climate change, trying to think through the fact that like we're so dependent on coal as South Africa, and that there's got to be some kind of shift. So this just energy transition basically says that there's green alternatives that can come and take over or replace coal mining in South Africa. Now, Eskom's been very big on this. They've made a lot of statements about wanting to, I think by 2080, completely reduce our dependency on coal miners to like 0%, which personally I think is kind of impossible. But I think pressures from Europe, from the Copenhagen talks, conferences and all that has put significant pressure on South Africa to look at this issue. And I mean, even besides that, there's lots of health-related issues of people who live in mining-affected areas. So I started to look at this, think through this, and me and my friend were like, it would be really interesting to write a story and maybe write even a radio play, because we're thinking about reach, right? And some of the people who this kind of story might be about or for are people who won't necessarily be able to get to a theatre in Johannesburg or wherever. So thinking through the radio as a way to disseminate to people far out and people everywhere. And we really wanted to go and research through talking to people in Mpumalanga, for example. And then fast forward a couple of years, earlier this year, I was invited to basically work on a radio play project at the Center for the Less Good Idea, and this story came back to my mind. So I did a lot of research, and then we created like a 15-20 minute excerpts, but specifically radio play. So focusing on the sonic aspects of storytelling. So the story, this one specifically, eMalahleni, it follows 4 characters, I would say. There's about 4 main characters and maybe 6, which seems like a lot, 6 supporting cast, but I imagine it as being like 4 or 5 actors, and then maybe people being able to swap in and play multiple characters. It follows four characters who are part of, say, 3 different families and the kind of issues that they face. The main family that we follow is this character called Mpumelelo, who you will see, and they sell coal to their community because sometimes in rural places or in townships it's much easier to do that than trying to go to Eskom and find things. So they sell from their yard, and Usiso has contracted TB. He was working at a mine called Optimum, which is actually a real mine, which has got a complicated story because the people in the corporation at some point kind of abandoned the mines and kind of like fired a bunch of people and like ran off with the funds kind of thing. So I'm trying to look at this as well, corruption in the coal sector. So Usiso gets fired because he contracts TB. So every year, I think the miners have to get this health test, and you have to pass what's called a red ticket test, and you have to pass this test. And if you don't, then you can't get employed again. Which is kind of ironic because working in the place is what essentially gives you the TB in the first place, and then you're in a situation where you can't work, but this is the only skill you have. So a lot of people turn to artisanal coal mining. So the focus of this work as well is artisanal coal mining. So people will find old abandoned mines and they'll just go down there and like find pickaxes, find whatever equipment that they can find and just do the best they can. So we hear a lot about like these old mines collapsing. We hear a lot about like gangsterism in these mines as well. So there's also this issue of people having no options open to them. And then the competition of being in those kinds of places. So this play is a first draft. It's kind of incomplete right now. It's about, I think it's about 20 pages. And there's a couple more characters. Well, the characters of Bongi you will see as well, Bongi, who's also an artisanal coal miner who works with Usiso. So I want to tease out his story a bit more. And there's another character who unfortunately you won't see because of the scenes we're doing, called Umbali, whose children, she has 2 children who have also got health issues related to living in the coal belt. And she's kind of like an activist. So this is where this first draft is for now. I would say it's a first draft, but not really complete. So South Africans in general, I think, is who I'm trying to pitch or share this story with. Because firstly, I mean, we're all involved in coal, because we all have power, and majority of our power comes from coal. We also know, I mean, right now there seems to be no load shedding, but like any moment I'm always thinking it's gonna come back. So we're definitely affected by the story. And I think sometimes as South Africans say, as people in the middle class or upper class, whatever, it's very easy for us to have blinkers and to not think about, when I switch on my lights, where is this coming from? Who's being affected in what ways? Right? And what is the situation, circumstances between the corporations, the government, the people on the ground, within the context of this climate change. So I would say South Africans in general need to know more about this, need to engage about this. But especially I would say people who it affects directly. And one of the hopes would be that eventually finding a way, government support, to maybe take a play like this to the coal belts and use this play as a way to engage through foreign theatre or something with the people in the community so that they can like voice their issues and maybe collectively find a way to like, if not contest, just to engage the government or to engage the corporations that they work with. And then this plays then also, of course, for those governments, for those corporations to be like, these are the lives of real people, you know, and this is the way that their livelihood is affected, the way that their health is affected, all of these things. So it's also, I think, for activists in general, especially people who are like in climate activism and health activism as well. So this is what I'd say is the audience. But again, like, it's a huge issue for me, like how if something feels like it doesn't affect you, you don't have to engage with it. But trying to even put these kinds of works into mainstream theatres, and then people having to deal with like, oh, this is the full picture of South Africa, I think is pretty important. Okay, so in terms of the style of the work, like I said, it was first developed as a radio play project. So there is this specific focus on the soundscape, and this is something also that I'm interested in general more and more, like immersive sound or like a sonicscape that becomes like an alternative text as well. Like, yes, there's dialogue, yes, there's, you know, but there's the sound world. And especially if we think about when people are underneath in the earth, in the bowels of the earth, digging for coal, like to think about how to have the audience also find themselves there, which I think is something to do with a soundscape, something like that. Also in general, my style is physical theatre, and especially to think through like choreographic sequences for the work itself, or to think through migration, people who are migrant labor, because a lot of people who are involved in mining in general, but coal mining specifically as well, migrant labor. So physical theatre is also something that I'm always interested in. And then I've been thinking, but it's kind of difficult. I just recently did a piece where we used quite a bit of projections, and it's like, it's really tough using technology in your piece. But I kind of feel like in my research, there were things that I came across that I feel like people need to see those images like themselves, literally. So maybe if we could use, audiovisual, like, AV, to kind of bring some of that, like the literal real world, into the stage. One of the videos in my research was this video of an abandoned mine, but it's like, it's really interesting. It's a door. It's literally, so you imagine just a field, and it's just a door. All around, whatever the building was before has completely crumbled. And I don't actually even know where half of the bricks went. It's literally a door. And through this door, people go down into the bowels of the earth. And so this is something that I'd like to think through in terms of like the design, which is kind of a design challenge, saying you want like a giant door that leads to the bowels of the earth, right? Like on stage. But it's something that I'm thinking of, that I'm interested in. Because this door, it kind of felt to me like a mouth that opens up and swallows people inside itself, which was, and then also want to kind of combine that with the realism of the worlds of the people that we find ourselves like following, like their homes, for example, their community, for example. So what you're about to watch, sorry, I'm almost done. So what you're about to watch is the first scene of the play, so kind of exposition. So here we get introduced to some of the characters, specifically Mabutla's family and their children, sort of setting up those relationships and beginning to set up the relationships between these people and the idea of mining in general and the friends that they work with. So we will also, there's a device also that's used in the piece, which is the news broadcast, which I think came from the radio thing, which is the news broadcast, which is a way to share the information about the coal sector, like the literal information that I feel like people need to know as well. So we'll see that. And we'll also meet Bongile, who I said is the friend, and we'll meet the two children of Mabutla and Sessie. So after this, what you will not see, the piece essentially then moves on to show people working in the mine. So sometimes they go for like week-long, 2 weeks, sometimes 3-week-long expeditions, like to go and, because essentially you can't return back without having made a particular amount, like it's your livelihood, you know, and often the people that you've left, your children, your mothers, or whatever, have an expectation of what you're going to be able to bring back. And then depending on how many people you find in the mine that you're going down to work in, there is sometimes less for you. So sometimes you have to spend longer. Sometimes rough things happen, like the mines collapse. And sometimes even when the mines collapse, people are like, okay, cool, we'll wait for it to be stable, and then we'll go back down. And another phenomenon is that the police come through, and they're like, oh, you're mining illegally, so then people have to bribe them. And oftentimes the police, which is so funny, the police will also then confiscate the coal, but sometimes will sell it on the black market for their own pockets. And so then people will have to go back down again. So yeah, in the next parts of the story, the workers will go down, the artisanal miners will go down into the bowels of the earth, working. At some point, policemen come just when they're about to finish, confiscate everything. And then they decide, okay, well, we have to stay longer. By this point, because they have barely any communication, I guess, with their families, sometimes there's network issues depending on how far you are. So your family is also always worried. So in the story, we also see Nompumelelo and her children and the way that they worry, waiting for their partner to come back. Yeah, we also see the lives of that specific community, just the everyday things, kids going to school, dogs barking in the streets, old people and young people, just trying to set up that whole, like, lives are lived, like, within a political context, and yeah, people are just living their lives, essentially. And then, well, the last kind of thing that happens, so I'm really into tragedy, and and often in my tragedies that things end badly, which sometimes like kind of my reflection of the world in general. So when they go back down the second time after the police have confiscated their coal, they work and then there is a collapse, and our main character, Siso, dies, essentially. But this idea of him dying in the collapse of the mine is something that's threaded through. So you see now that the piece kind of starts with a dream. So there's like kind of this shared dream between him and his partner that he will pass on because of this thing. And then they spend the rest of the play, I guess, like, yeah, in the tug of war between, okay, I have to do this, but at the same time, my life is in danger, my life is in threat. Okay, so hopefully we are ready to receive the piece, and I'll see you after. Thank you. I'm going to place this here. Might I take it to the back? Okay, thank you. Will the curtain open? Okay. It starts with a dream. It is early in the morning, eMalahleni.
baby. Vuka. Azange uthi ubonga uzofika early namhlanje. Vuka sibuka.
Itsuhile man.
Hayi wena usile.
Man rantonyana e1 bana.
Hayi isikhathi sihambile sibuka.
Akuyarobana.
Hayi man Sibusiso phela vuka. Kanti umuntu onjani lona othi ngimvuse first thing ekseni bese ke yaqake mina. Hayi bo. Okay.
Lona itsuhile.
Ngiyobeka amanzi ke ne?
Okay.
Nombubelelo gets up from the bed, a creak.
Kitsuhetswi.
Man.
Nombubelelo opens the bedroom door as Sibusiso switches on the radio for the 5 a.m. news.
It's a few moments before 5, and I'm with you, early risers, with this morning's broadcast. Following last week's mining endeavor held in Cape Town, the coal sector seems to be the primary focus of discussions, and the urgency to shift towards renewable energy amidst a rising climate crisis continues pressure on the health sector of mining-affected areas and the structural dangers posed by decommissioned mines. In other news, the president promises a quick end to load shedding at the State of the Nation address. And later, Bafana flies closer to the sun than it has in decades at AFCON's semi-finals against Nigeria.
Nombumelelo walks to the kitchen as the water boils. She pours some water into a plastic pail, refills the pot, and takes the boiled water to Sibusiso, now sitting up in their room. Sibusiso drags the washing basin out from under the bed. She leaves as he prepares to wash.
Minandla. Ma. Vuka nana. Oh. Ubuza nosisi wakho yazi?
Mama. Sibahle. Mama uritsokoto sami. Kitugile. Ujwale wena ka boroko. Ke tlo hlape wena o feditše. Ke tlo go tlogela nna mama. Stru. Wa gona mara ke nna tshwanetse a latele. Montle ke go botša. Enka latela mo o tlo ntseba gabotse.
Bubu, ngwabekile amanzi. Ungivusile usisi wakho mina nhle.
Wabatseba bana ba go le boroko mama.
Intombazane enjani lena? Vuka wena. Sibahle?
Mama.
Vuka.
Watonya.
Bubu. Spuda. Bubu. Spuda. Who's that, Mpumi? Ikhona le chap uSbuda.
Awupipizi man. Engathi uyaqala ukushaya ihutha. Ungaphakathi usasula.
Hayi akasibambi naye isikhathi uSbuda.
Akuvuki phela yaza kuvukeki.
Uyamtefisa. Hey, amsho kumnandi ukuvuka ebeleni lomfazi.
Hayi wena ke awunayo leyo nkinga. Ngizwe bathi nje unenkinga nyana nomakhelwane.
Miyeke umbali mani Mpumi uzothamba.
Kodwa wena bongi uyamosha jo.
Ndikumjida mfowethu ayikho enye indlela.
Safa sihleli ngenxa yakho. Ithi ngiyambheka ke. Amsho sebeyaceda. Sibusiso. Sibusiso bekulindile ngoba egate. Sibusiso.
And then coffee
Ukutshelile ekseni ukuthi isikhathi siyahamba. Uzokuyenzela ngokufakela eflaskini. Ibuye ke iflask yami Sibusiso please ngiyakucela. Hayi. Ngiyageza mina nhle.
Mama.
Okay, cedani phela. Nipheni inkukhu ukudla before nihamba ne? Nawe sibahle. Uzosinkwa. Engiyazi phela ukuthi bayanilambisa kuletha sikolo senu.
Ma.
Umphebi sisi wakho mina nhle.
Mara mama wakho.
Hayi.
Kanti ke indaba ya hore bana ba sikaja ku sekolo.
Papa, yo, mama uthi drama, para fa lunch.
Okay, no avu ke o kwa baby. My baby. It looks amazing.
Ubuya papa. Ek was kolong.
Hey, Lwena, I know after the I don't know what's more big. Yeah, Gorurvala has 7. What's about?
Papa, ke gotile.
Where?
1.
Why not watch it?
2.
2 lamabota,
3,
the radiator,
4,
4 lang line,
5,
faladi pizza,
6,
6 mabota, 7 lamada.
Buda man, wethu phuma. Uyazi kumele sifike kuqala laphaya man. Hayi man.
Mfodini bombs, the ready man. Okay, Sessie. Sessie.
Papa?
Ke sa botsa moratho mo re ke ya tsamaya.
Oh.
Ya ke khopela gore le ske be nela tshwenya mmale nna ke
Papa.
o lokile ke tla le bona after metsotso ya mesebe.
Oh.
Motho wa ka?
Yebo.
Again. Matsatsi a masebene fela ngwana.
Hayi, sibuyathanda ukuthi bahamba ibheki phela ubuye. Ibheki yakho wena ihamba ibheki 2 weeks yonke. Hawu.
Ukuthi sibone imali wena Mpumi Stomani. Amandla sesekhona angeke sihlale singasebenzi.
Ana ke bone man mabane a ke lebelela mola gore supply ela ya rena ya fela motho wa ka.
Ayi ngoba bayathenga abantu bo. Kakhulu njengoba basifake ku stage 6 ye load shedding. Phela yazi umbani lana uhamba is 12 hours yonke.
Mara ska complain ka gore ape business e santsane le msha. Mara o lebeletse ura gore beke e tla ba enough.
Ngazi kuzodependa ebantwini. Yazi abantu bayadependa kula malahle. Sizobona phambili. Mawaphela ngizobathuma kule abhudlo yami. Yamkhumbula lo othengisa lapha. Zone 5 yeah.
Awuna strategy wena. Uxosha ama customer.
Hayi, wazini wena ngokuthengisa amalahle. Hambani guys, hambani man. Nishesheni ningaze ngikhanye.
Usakhala namanje. After yonke leminyaka, hayi uyalithanda legundwane lakho man.
Okay, bamba baby. Awukade betithi niyosebenza ku
Optimum.
Hayi guys, niyanifanya shame.
No, ba shatile down kwa una motho a dina mola re aya kwa go tsia lotshela. We have a right to it.
Yeah, hayi niphephe ke yazi ngizwe ukuthi bathi lama minds wenu akunokucollapse nje.
Man, relax wena Mpumi. Ngafika amaphoyisa aqala before kuyenzekana.
Ngayi bile ke tshwenya ke taba amapholisa.
Hey, bahlupha ke.
Hayi nekani ngitshela yakani ngizonyusa i-blood pressure ngiyacela. Hambani. Nike futhi ke lapho niyakhona.
Okay.
Usisi ngiyacela. Mawuphuma kule yamgodi yana ngicela ufone.
Mara motho wa ka ntjele ya.
Okay, bye bye.
Ciao.
Mpumi Sto.
Yeah.
Utshela umbali ukuthi nami ngifuna amalafu.
We hear the closing door, the rattle of a key in its place. Nompumelelo sighs, returning inside. She puts the kettle on, opening the fridge to take out milk, cupboards for tea and sugar, the drawers to take out a cup and a teaspoon.
Binenhle. Mali.
Smaak lekker op hulle diere. O bo tla jesa dikgogo.
Ke tia bjang ke le busy ka dijo. Umsindo ekseni ngicela ninganyanyisi please. Sibahle. Wozana nozi ngizokuyenza inhloko. Sibahle.
It's a few moments before 6 a.m. and you're listening to your hourly news update. Coming up, South Africa signs 4.6 billion rand deals with renewable energy companies and pledges to decrease dependency on coal for electricity from 80% to 59% by 2030. There are already training programs in place to equip people with the skills that will be needed to manufacture and maintain equipment for renewables. We speak to Eskom's Chief Executive Officer, who agrees that coal is environmentally unstable.
Well, we are not denialists.
Amanga again. Eskom.
Actors, do you want to come and take your bow? You're welcome.
No, I mean, I'm always, it's such a standard practice. I'm the one who told them we must practice it, guys, just in case.
Absolutely fantastic.
I completely forgot to say it's multilingual. I'm mostly in, right now, Sepedi, we've done it in Tswana, in Xhosa, Zulu, there's some English, towards later parts, there's some Afrikaans as well. So yeah, it's really trying to be like a multilingual South African.
It's an honor to have you here. First one to say, I mean, you've written award-winning plays already, and it's really, I mean, for me, the subject matter and how you deal with it, and it becomes a metaphor for so many things, is incredible. I'm going to keep my comments very short because I really want to hear from you. I love the soundscape idea and the idea where that's going. What I do want to ask you is, and I don't want to, yeah, I think it's important to talk about it because we had this discussion in Cape Town as well. I mean, the whole idea is that we have to develop plays, the stories of South Africa in the languages that we've got here, the rich languages that we've got. Often it's difficult because, and you mentioned in your opening statements that you want it to be for all, it's for everyone. It's for everyone needs to experience it. So my question for you, just for interest sake, from your point of view, how do you see something that is, because I think many people here, and thank goodness you gave a very clear idea of what the play was about, and that gave us a lot of keys of what is happening. The soundscape helped, your reading of the stage instructions helped. But how do we open up the different languages to different audiences that don't speak that language? What is how do you feel, I mean, yeah.
Sure. I mean, the easiest, I guess, answer to that is, if one is already thinking about projections, then you could really use subtitles, right? My difficulty often with subtitles is that we tend to read and we stop watching. But it's complicated, especially if a play wants to have like 5, 6 different languages. It's not as simple as saying, well, if we're doing this work in Xhosa and we're in the Western Cape or the Eastern Cape, shame, people must just figure it out. And if you say you want to travel this work to like lots of different kinds of contexts where people speak Sepedi and they don't speak Xhosa, you have to do something. So I think translations. I've also come across a phenomenon where when people enter, they'll get given a page, which is like a scene breakdown. I've once done this before, a scene breakdown, so that you can understand what's going on. But I guess in terms of language, you're more following what you can understand. Because sometimes, I think we take for granted, but sometimes there is some stuff that we've picked up, depending on which part of South Africa we live in. There is some stuff. And if we just, I get surprised sometimes with Afrikaans, when I just let it wash over me and I stop being like, oh, I don't understand, I'm trying to understand. There's some things that I do actually pick up. And that's also a way to experience language, right? And then also thinking through language also as sound, if we're thinking sonicascape as well. But it's very important for me that things are understood, right? So I think, like projected translations, but then comes the question of in which language. Of course, it's South Africa, so we say like the sort of lingua franca is English, but then I'm going to say in Mpumalanga and doing this work in mining affected area. And maybe people don't actually, maybe they do speak English, but it's a different kind of English. And maybe to read the subtitles in that way is quite difficult. So then it becomes what language where. Yeah, but I think subtitles are the best option if I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the way they deal with it mostly in Europe, I think. But it is, it's interesting to we have to think about that because I mean, where this play is going, the style of it, the importance of what the story you are telling, the impact of that on communities, on South Africa, on everything that it impacts. It's important for all audiences to
I think so. And there's also that thing, right, that like with the particular kind of theatre, say physical theatre, for example, there's things that, so I'm also interested in this, like, how can we communicate beyond language, right? So sometimes in the actions, in the sequences, in the soundscaping, in the whatever, particular parts, moments of the story are translated. And maybe we don't have to understand every single word for word to be able to understand the through line of the story. So that's also another possibility, depending on what style is used to tell the story, that there's multiple ways in.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to open it up immediately for comments. Any comments, questions? Must you stop immediately and not continue with this plan? Sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a true theatrical experience to see this. It started to me. I was thought at one stage I'm looking at a comedy strip, and I think you've got something very special here. And we need this type of work. I'm so tired of pathology and mental wellness. We've seen far too many plays about that. So we need to engage with what's going on in the country. And this is really wonderful that you are doing this play. And as an Afrikaans speaker, I do understand Samaya and Rubala and Vuka. It's really not that difficult to follow. And it's how we present multilingual work to audiences that will in the end get also integrated audiences into theatres, and not only in theatres. This can happen under a tree. That's the beauty of your work. So thank you, and keep on doing work and challenge our audiences and challenge our communities, and also be politically involved in what's going on in the country. We're not seeing enough of that.
Yes, question right here in the middle. Did you put your hand up? On your left.
Hi, Qondi. Nice to see you. I just want to say, firstly, amazing. That was amazing. I don't speak most of the languages, but I wanted to touch on the point that you were saying beyond language, because the physicality of the actors, amazing job, guys. Yeah, I could understand everything that's happening. I felt like I was there in this community, in this family. So yeah, you say it's a first draft, but the chemistry already between the actors, and it was awesome. And I could understand through the physicality of the work, and I wanted to see more. So I can't wait to go to KKNK.
Another hand up. Yes, right at the back.
Hello, thank you so much. It was so enjoyable. I agree with Sarki. One could follow so much. For me as an Afrikaans speaker, I could really follow, and I think the physical theatre is so important. From a school, from an education perspective, I think this is such an important play. And I'm also thinking exactly what Hugo said about the issue of language, and one would want as many school children to be able to see this. And I'm thinking if one couldn't bring in, the education department is moving into a multilingualism approach to education where languages are mixed in the classroom, and that one could maybe adopt some of that maybe, or in other works, so that more learners or more audience members can understand, bringing a narrator or an English-speaking character in. And then the physicality, of course, and even the technical side where you spoke about video in your introduction, that's all ways of making it very clear to a non-speaking, audience. But I want to say thank you. I agree. I think this is such an important play, especially in an educational, in a high school context. Thanks.
I mean, if I can just say something in a comment about potentially English-speaking characters. The thing also is that even when we speak in our different vernaculars, like Afrikaans, Xhosa, whatever, sometimes English has made its way into like the colloquial way that we speak. So there's a line, I'm not sure if anybody caught it, but where the Spusiso character, he says something about, we're going to go down into the mines, we're going to take, he says this in Bedi, we're going to take what's down there. And then he says in English, we have a right to it. So there's particular parts of the text, given text, that I would say, because we can say it in English, we can say it in a language that more people can understand, that this is the point. And in this moment of the point, I want everyone to understand. So this can be English, this can be English. So there's different ways to like use language, open and closing, open and closing.
Okay, good. One more comment. Okay. You do.
Hi, so I'm an actor in this piece, and what's coming up in this conversation about language is so interesting. What comes to mind is this playwright. His name is Robert O'Hara. He's an American playwright, and he's got a play called Booty Candy, where this family is going through a particular situation. They're, used to be middle class, and because economically they were affected in various ways, life has kind of gone into shambles. So it's kind of what was being displayed here. But what he does is he does a double casting, right? So he's got a Black family and then he's got a white family, and it's the same narrative throughout. And what he does is between scenes, he changes the families, right? And so you're following one singular family, but essentially they're people who would be Afrikaans, for example, and then Zulu or Xhosa or whatever the case may be. And I think there's a real possibility here for kind of like the diversity of and the intersectionality rather of our crisis as a country, like our economic crisis, right? Because a lot of the time we see those things in singular lenses, and it's actually something that we're all going through at the same time. So I would like to see more of that, where we are leveraging stories like this to present a united front in terms of what's going on with our people and the kind of troubles we're facing, So that's a really interesting thing. And I think that also speaks to the integration of languages, as she was saying before, and how we can engage each other instead of using language as a device to separate us, to say that we are this or we are that, you know what I mean? Yeah, thanks. Cheers.
I think can we just applaud that? Yeah.
Hello. I want to run it back to the conversation around the just transition, because it has been all the rage. It has been all the rage at the mining indabas whenever there are conversations with the electricity minister, with heads of Eskom, and how they've been switching and trying to figure out how to move towards a more sustainable way to provide South Africans with electricity. And one of the things that have triggered the conversation around this play is the fact that even at the mining indabas, even at the big meetings that they have down in Mpumalanga, there is a continuous blanket ignoring of miners. And you said something really that's stuck with me when you opened earlier on, and you said that we never think about where our electricity comes from and who it costs. And I think on a global scale, we're a lot more inclined to be able to connect with the fact that, in Congo, there are children who are mining, and the materials that they mine there are the same that make big corporations in America rich, and they're able to provide us with our cell phones. And we're able to say, we need what's happening in Congo to stop, and we need to stop upgrading our iPhones. But we actually don't have a conversation here in South Africa about who is actually paying properly for our electricity. And even in the call for a green South Africa and a push for renewable energy, there's still no conversation about the miners, which is also what COSATU and other workers' associations have been calling for, to say that you say that you're going to teach them new skills, and you say that you'll take them out of the mine and you'll teach them how to be able to be a part of the just transition, because they will either fix the panels, or they'll be in the solar industry. So I want to ask you a question about that, which is, have you been able to gauge what the general feel around electricity and understanding of coal in relation to the just transition is from people? And then my other question is, what kind of support do you need to grow this work?
Thanks, Jebo. So Jebo actually is the person that I referred to before. We've been interested in this and kind of developing this as a story for a while, and I've been trying to somehow find support to give to Mpumalanga and talk to people. So in the research period earlier this year, when I was speaking to people seem to have this kind of understanding of, like, everyday people, like, oh, coal is really bad, and pollution, and like, we should go green, we should go solar, but people don't often think about, like, the costs of that. Like, yeah, like, it's gonna be billions, right? And I don't know where South Africa gets these billions. And then in, like, the one or two conversations with people, so I've got some family who are living in Mpumalanga and are involved in that. It seems to me there's a general, like, people don't have information. So there's this, we're gonna phase out coal mines, and in this phasing out of coal mines, we're gonna be able to equip people still to be able to, like, make livelihoods, etc. But people don't have access to that information. And the government keeps claiming, like, I watched a lot of interviews with the government saying, oh, we're doing this in Mpumalanga, but people are like, where is it? Where is it? Like, I haven't been able to find where the training program is. And even the situation of, so while I'm being trained, I'm not going to be getting paid. So I'm gonna get trained for like 6 months, 7 months, a year, but I have, like, how am I going to be able to make a salary to be able to, like, live with my family? And some people actually on the other side, some people are just like, coal is our life. And there is absolutely no way that we can phase out these coal mines. And so some people, of course, are also like, climate change, what is this, like, because it's not, it doesn't feel like it directly affects them. But if you start shutting down coal mines all over the place, that's like a direct effect. So there's like a huge part of, like, society activists trying to be like, build more coal mines, right? So like, it feels to me that the conversation is really, really murky. And that people are speaking across each other, and people are making plans in their silos. And I just wonder, when all of these things meet, what's actually going to happen? Yeah, I mean...
I'm going to interrupt you there and get to the question that you asked at the end, because that's what I wanted to end with. What do you need to develop this piece? Because I think it's important in what you're busy with. What do you need for research? What do you need? What support do you need? And how can anyone here or anyone out there help you and assist you to bring this to stage and deliver this?
Thank you. So the first thing is for me to understand, still somehow I'm in a developmental stage. And, like, this key thing of, I want to meet people in mining affected areas and sort of do the story somehow with them, read the story, allow the story that's on paper to be affected by their actual realities. So a kind of writing process that involves people who are involved. So it feels like there's, like, a play writing development part of it. And then, of course, it's like, you want to show the work, and there's that thing of wanting to get performers, etc., and even wanting space, right? Like, there's always an issue of space. One thing that I've been appreciating about KKNK and, like, Teksmark, I guess, specifically, is this call in for languages, and the way that it's opened up more to be like, not just Afrikaans language, but all the languages in South Africa. So finding those platforms, finding those venues, and people to be able to help link with particular communities and communities, festivals, venues, space. It's always too simple to say, oh, I need funds. I mean, that's implied. But it's like, I need to go to Mpumalanga, I need these people, and I need some support for that, and to keep writing this play. And then I need to connect with festivals like KKNK and, festivals that are interested in language. There's also another one, Tshegofatso Festival, I think it's in Bloemfontein, I don't know if it's closed now, but finding where are those platforms in South Africa which focus on language, where this kind of work would like fit. And then who could link this play with the people that, so not just the people on the ground.
Do the people.
Exactly. People are on the ground.
Who it's about.
Yes. Yeah. So this thing of imagine an audience with the electricity officials, with some of the corporations and people on the ground and doing this play, and then afterwards saying, okay, let's have this conversation. Let's actually try to figure something out about it.
Is that ultimately what you want to achieve? Is to get the conversation going with the right people.
Hugo, can I just add last comment?
Yes, quickly, please.
I love the idea. I love the idea to stage the play under a tree. If you look at a lung, it does look like a tree or an upside down tree or roots. I love the above and below. I felt like your radio news bulletins were like what is happening in the head, what is happening up there, but we never go down. We never see the roots of it. So I think there's so much powerful imagery, and also for us to understand what is happening on a micro, on a day-to-day practical level, because we hear the speak, we hear the spokespeople speak on radio, but what is behind that, underneath that? So wonderful, thank you.
It's an important play. It's you behind it. It's exciting. I think, yeah. So I hope really we can somehow find a way to get the funding so that you can go and do the research. Because I think this is about a year project to actually develop it into a full play eventually and find the right kind of spots and places for it. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Garth Mason, where are you? And the next play is Tall Ships by Garth Mason, and I'm handing over to Garth. Light him up.
Good morning. Firstly, if I may, firstly, I want to thank KKNK for creating the Joburg Teksmark Festival, not just as this a wonderful opportunity, but also has provided Renos and Peter and Christian and I with a really beautiful, poignant and creative growth journey while preparing this play leading up to today. Secondly, I want to thank Garth Mason, who's a drama teacher at Helpmaker, for letting us this exceptional puppet that you will see just now for our reading. And a huge shout out for the creator of the puppet, Thomas Ray. I contacted him the other day and he said, would you like to come? And when he built the puppet at the beginning of the year, he was unemployed, he had been retrenched. But I can happily report that he's working now. So he's working today. So thirdly, I really want to thank the director Renos, the cast Peter and Christian. All three guys have been absolutely instrumental in helping me bring Tall Ships the page to the stage. Right, so Tall Ships is a one-act play about emotional scars and relationships. The main idea in the play explores what would you say to someone who has passed away and then returns to have a conversation with you. Now, the two characters in the play, Brian and David, are father and son. Brian is deceased and appears to David one evening. They uses their relationship as a portal through which to explore the myriad of human relationships between love partners, between parents and children, societal and political relations, memory and forgetting, and finally our difficult relationships with disease and death. The central metaphor of Tall Ships depicts the ways in which the two characters negotiate the difficult waters of their lives. David, David is an academic philosopher working in the University of, a university in Gaborone in Botswana. He's in his early 40s. He lives alone in a university housing. His wife, Kathy, 2 children, live separately in Johannesburg. David is caught up in the world of ideas because he's a philosopher. As a philosopher, he attempts to work through his difficulties with abstract ideas and philosophical thinking. The central problem he's trying to resolve is whether we see what we believe, or we believe what we see. David feels his isolation and his separation from his family very painfully, as well as an almost helpless sense of disconnection in the world around him. Now, David and Brian share the love of football, which is perhaps their only shared joy in their otherwise very difficult relationship. David is attempting to heal his relationship with his dad by rebuilding a model of the HMS Victory, that's a tall ship, that his father had built way back in the 1970s, when David was a child. As the play progresses, David slowly expresses his issues with his father. He also begins to share 2 deeply felt guilt issues that are eating away at him. The first concerns not stopping to assist a black woman who was being attacked on the roadside in the early hours one Saturday morning as he drove to South Africa to see his daughter compete in her school's athletics day. And David refers to this scene in the extract. The other concerns a childhood memory where the family were witness to a hit and run of a black man riding a bicycle. The extract is the final denouement of the play. Many of the themes and metaphors explored in the play are resolved in these final moments. The extract begins where it is revealed that David is dying from a brain tumor. And indeed, the entire play could have taken place as a figment of David's imagination. As the play draws to its climax, David's brain is fragmented. His guilt and loneliness are pushed to a frenzy. The play's conclusion leaves it for the audience to decide whether David finds inner peace from his psychological torments, or whether the comfort he receives from Brian's ghost is only a figment of his imagination. We meet the 2 characters with Brian and David, with Brian asking David when he intends to tell Kathy's wife about his cancer. All right, enjoy it.
You need to tell them. I wish I could find the strength. But Christ, you sat at home that whole Easter with the knowledge until you told us.
You need to get things in order. Check that life policy.
There's still time. So the specialists say.
But how long will sanity prevail? That is another question.
It's not my sanity that is in question, so they tell me. It's my personality. Apparently that's at stake. I can look forward to mood swings, aggression, and generally not feeling like myself.
Well, that's a relief. Yeah, it's one thing not to remember who you are, but it's quite another to not feel like yourself, you know, having to confront this foreign self head on.
What was going through your mind that Easter weekend?
Numbness. Trying not to think and failing. Having succeeded in not thinking for the preceding few decades, suddenly thoughts were cramming my brain, wreaking havoc in my grey matter. It's just what you are trying to do now. Stop those thoughts. What place have they got in your already infected brain?
Numbness is not thinking. Thoughts keep coming. In a train, interminably following each other. Thankfully, they always leave.
Yeah, well, that's not what I thought in my last week before the end. I felt relief. At least it was going to end.
Bloody hell. I can't look at these thoughts. How am I supposed to acknowledge them to Kathy?
That's what this thing called life is all about, mate.
What?
Sharing. You do it all the time. Share the thoughts in your mind. That is the basis of belief. You can believe in the shit that you think by sharing it, or you can believe the good stuff by sharing it. The sharing makes it stronger. In a way, I agree with you. You know, the seeing is in the believing. But that's not a one-man job. We believe because we have managed to believe it together.
You don't remember, do you?
Remember what? You keep asking me this. What are you getting at?
Truth. It slips and slides. There are some thoughts that hang around infecting everything. They come with their own glue. Maybe they are the truth. They defy the mind. Uninvited, they come in, put up their feet, and just give you the finger.
Are you talking about those monsters again?
Yes. But there comes a time when they step out of the shadows for a moment and show themselves. Violent and cruel. But what's most terrifying about them is that they reflect madness. This madness, which is shared by us all. And as we try to understand the root of this horrifying violence, the mind, the sly bugger, it dictates, thou shalt not contemplate the truth. There's always a secret being withheld. Because the consequences of bringing it to light are just too bloody scary for us to bear.
What am I forgetting? Which monster became real?
On the old Pretoria Road. I was 6. Must have been winter. I remember the cold. That car didn't stop. Like an unstoppable wave. You must remember. It was a family excursion to Pretoria. We visited the house where Paul Kruger lived, the Air Force Museum, and on the hill, the Voortrekker Monument. I remember how clean everything was. The shining surfaces, the floors in Paul's house, the white engravings of Voortrekkers on the walls of the Voortrekker Monument, their battles and prayers, and that high ceiling with the hole in the center. That very still holy air that hung over us, as in Reverend Fenter's church. On the way home, it was dusk. You were driving that old green Opel with a big steering wheel, Mom next to you, and the 4 kids in the back. Us and the Cox 2 kids, Jeremy and Cynthia. The light, not quite golden, an afterglow, something like tan or light brown. That car came up on us on the left. All I remember was his black suit flying in the air, loose, like his body had already left it. All that remained were his Sunday best and his bicycle. It all happened so fast and yet so slow. But then his body just lay there as the car's wheels rode over him. We just sat, silent. Mom began weeping. You put your hand on her lap, but we carried on driving. We did nothing. We just watched. It happened before our eyes, and we just let it happen. That car was aiming for him. The man on his bicycle. That was no accident. That car, coming up on our left, sped up, took aim, and hit its target. The driver, an assassin. And what were that old man's last thoughts as he pedaled along the shoulder of the road? I just watched the scene from the rear window of the car as it vanished from my sight.
I was driving. It happened.
This can't be happening.
It is happening.
Bloody hell! I was dreaming. I think. I can't be sure. My cell phone beeped loudly on my bedside table. It was a text message. Call me now. I pushed the call button, but it was engaged. It all seemed so strange. Then I seemed to slip off into a deep sleep. There was a massive storm outside.
Yeah, like now.
Like now. The rain pelting on the roof. My cell phone beeped again. I look at the screen. Taken to the mountains. Out of cell phone reach. I'll be gone for 40 days and 40 nights. Then I awakened from that dream into another dream. Kathy was sitting beside me, clad only in a G-string. She was smiling at me. She bent down and kissed my forehead. Outside, in the distance, I could hear a kind of ringing or gonging. I felt her lips on my skin, but she had turned into that black woman. She was saying, I was in that car. I was his wife. She said I could leave now. And I felt myself leaping out of bed. I rushed into the deserted street outside the house. In the distance, I thought I could see an elephant slowly moving. I ran to catch up with it. I ran around the bend to where it was walking, by the western bypass near Kigali's view next to the technical college. For an instant, I thought I could almost see the elephant. But then, I was blinded by an approaching Pantechnicon, its bright green, red, and yellow lights a passing carnival float. I couldn't. In my pajamas, alone, in the middle of the road, straining to see down the road. The truck had gone. No sound in the distance. And then I saw it again. The elephant. It was moving north. towards Francistown and further into the desert. I turned to make my way back.
It's okay now. You're here now. There's a match on the TV.
Kaiser Chiefs and Pirates.
Yeah.
The Soweto Derby.
Oh, look at him. Oh, he's brilliant. Fallen and Nanya. What a free kick. He had the Pirates' defense in pieces. They thought he was going to try to go through the wall, and then he curves it for Dr. Kamalov storming into the open space on the wing.
Oh, they're all here with us. The greats of the past. I can feel them. Oh, Screamer, Chavalala, Teenage, Blah, Blah, and...
What about the Pirates, guys? Isaac Rock of London Motte, Elliot Buick Bucalesi, Bernard Dancing Shoes Hartzer, and Jomo Sono!
Gary Bailey, Peter Ballack, Jimmy Jobert, and Beach! I call their names. There's no more threat. They come with no blame in their hearts. Gently. Gently. He's still in his Sunday best. She pulls off from the roadside. There they go. They're a part of me now. And you, with me.
Thank you, Garth. Just interesting, Garth, you are teach and research in Buddhist and Western class, and you're currently associate professor in Religious Studies at UNISA. It's a good question, and you've done, I mean, there's poetry on this list, there's a book, there's many, but now you're dabbling in theatre. My question would be why? And how does your studies and your field kind of influence your practice?
I have to really say that I did drama at school. So it's also, in those days it wasn't a subject like it's now, which is an extramural activity, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And I went to a school that drama was taken very seriously, Northcliffe High, where their productions are put on, around the country, or in Durban at least. So that was always part of me, and I went into academics, and part of the play was imagined when I was actually teaching in University of Botswana, and I had a loose end in the evenings, so I started writing a play, and that's how it was born.
It's very interesting, I think. I mean, there's a few of you who's regular festival goers, and I think this year we've had quite a few plays about father-son relationships. Think about Philip's Stinkcoat, Philip Rodemain's Stinkcoat, and Albatroff's love painter. So there's obviously something about that father-son relationship that's being investigated by writers, which is quite interesting to me. I just want to open it up for questions and comments, please. Would be wonderful to hear from you. Anyone? Where's Tracy? Right there, can you just put up your hand, Tracy, and then I know where to take the microphone. There we go.
Thanks very much for the text, and thanks, Rena, for the excerpt. I mean, what I really find interesting about the script is, I think in South African history, we had the TRC and we looked at like the big crimes, but I think there's very little investigation of like the tiny brutalities that happened during apartheid. And I think one of the things that this play does, and I think the theatre is one of the few mediums where you can explore those, is try and like investigate that. And I'm wondering how you see that the political side of the play landing, although it's a very personal story, and in your hearing about your background in like religious studies and academia, how that influenced the kind of outcome of the story when you were writing it.
The story of the black man in the Haitian run actually happened. My neighbors had taken their children and my sister and I to the excursion to Pretoria, and on the way back, we saw that happen. And as I wrote about it, initially I always thought it was an awful Haitian run, and then as I grew older, I was 6 years at the time. And this cold reality dawned on me that wasn't a Haitian run. It was a kill. It was that meant to happen. The driver meant to run there, but the man on his bicycle. And I suppose the whole play, I wanted to pay homage to that man. It's really the climax of that. Pay homage to the way, I don't know what his life was or how he lived, but I saw how he died. And I wanted to record that event. And that's what it is, and then it means Garth the puppet. I said to the cast and Renos, this is why I wrote this play, for that man. Again, I think you asked about what I'm looking at philosophically and psychologically, how the context of apartheid damaged us as white people living in this crazy, cruel, evil society. And when David says we cannot look at that evil, something prevents us from looking at, when you do look at it, able to look at the evil, in hindsight, it hits you with where you can't look at it for too long because the evil of it is too immense. And so I really wanted to write a play about scars of emotional torment, but also really what the research is doing, coming out with now, is intergenerational scars that pass down through the genes, and how this trauma really is in our bodies, and we pass it on to our next generation. So the play is really about torment and these really real scars that are in our genetics. Yeah.
That answers a bit of what I was wondering about the father-son relationships and why we have so many plays. And it's obviously something that I want to say the sins of the fathers, or no, it's more than that. It's the impact of that intergenerational scars, as you call it, and the impact of that history and the impact on the generation now. And that's kind of and the trauma of that, and how we deal with that now. And I think that you can go and read in that book, there's in the booklet, there's a specific quote that you specifically highlighted. I don't know if you want to actually read it, because I think that sums it up beautifully of what you want to say with this play.
Yes. So Brian says, "Where did those monsters go?" David replies, "Not sure. Well, it wasn't until a few days ago. And then I think I ran into a few of them again." Brian replies, "Those monsters on our streets these days, not only at night, the fear is real. They do not only exist in our imagination anymore."
Yeah, fear is real. Any questions, any comments? Is that a hand? No, that was a no. There's one last comment there. It looks like
It's Marius.
Marius.
I'm just curious. Well, it's beautiful to listen to the words. I close my eyes, I can hear it, I can see all the descriptions. I can see there's a radio play at the moment, very definitely so. So I'm just curious how you envision it being on a stage, with projections, or what else you're envisioning with the play, to bring the message out.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, because in the days when I wrote the play, which was quite a few years ago, I wrote it as a radio play initially for SAFM, and they declined. They didn't want to put it on, and I didn't require why. I think, oh gosh, I don't know. By the way, and so I put it on, shelved it. But over the years, then I would show it to a few people in the drama world, and they would say, "Oh, no, you just need to make this into a play on stage. You need to cut down the long soliloquies and the make it more interaction between the two characters." So I would say yes. I think the play is still in transition from radio to stage. I mean, it's wonderful that you picked that up, because it initially was a radio play. I then sent it to my old buddy Renos. It's been known for many years. In April this year, I said, "Oh, what do you think of the play?" I said, "Oh." So then we've just been working with it since then. But I think your question, it's in transition. I think at the moment it's partly, it's there as a radio play, but it's wanting to be on stage.
Thank you so much, Garth. Really lovely. And thank you for the excerpt, and good luck. I hope this play comes to life after all these years. Thank you, Garth. Carla, I can put that microphone. You don't have to take the chair. Ek het sien Harry Leonard, welkom. Bly jy is hier so. En ek sien Jade Bowers van AK21 ook gearriveer, baie welkom. Laat zitten, ek gee oor aan jou.
Goeiedag almal, soos julle nou gehoor het, my naam is Klink. Baie dankie dat julle hier so is vandag. Moenie stres nie, ons gaan nou 'n koffiebreek hê, okay? Byt vas, ons is amper daar. With that being said, I do just want to issue a general disclaimer, trigger warning that the following play does make mentions of GBV and assault for anyone who might need that trigger warning. Ladies and gentlemen, a rapist is not born, but made. Apart from my creative work, I work in the mental health field. And I have sat across from many young women, girls, and boys who have been raped or sexually assaulted. It's okay, don't look so distressed, it's my job, I'm trained to handle it. But the part that really throws me sometimes is when they look up at me through all their pain and they ask, why? Why hasn't this happened to me? And more often than not, I find any answer I can come up with to be woefully insufficient. That being said, I've also sat across from perpetrators in my little office, mostly young men who've been in and out of South Africa's courtrooms and jails, some of whom are very willing to change and some who are not. In the words of Clementine Ford, we are all afraid that our daughters will be hurt, but no one is afraid that their sons will be the ones to do the hurting. I am sure that the South African climate and our high rates of GBV is not going to shock any of you. I think we're all very aware of that. I'm sure you've heard numbers like 42,000 rapes in the year of 2023 alone. That's 1 every 12 minutes if you do the math. And I'm also sure you're aware of international headlines. Names like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Brett Kavanaugh all ring a bell for a myriad of reasons. This theme taps into the pulse of contemporary culture, and it resonates with all of us because it touches all of us. And in that being said, that brought me to the central question of this play. How does one go about raising a rapist? And how does one family reckon with the reality that they've created one? This play is 4 years in the making. I have wrote my honors thesis on rape culture. I've done many courses on GBV and trauma, and I've probably read up more on this topic than is good for a person. And I've done all of this not because I'm arrogant enough to think that I have all the right answers. I don't. But because I wanted to be bold enough to start and ask the right questions. This play follows one Afrikaans family and one survivor as they pose themselves these questions. The play has about an hour, a little bit more than that of runtime. It requires 5 actors. And we start off, as you'll see now, behind the scenes at a wedding where a family receives some news. As the play progresses, their line of questioning becomes almost like a courtroom drama, because we all know the most important trial is the one that happens in the public opinion. I'd love to speak into some of the metaphorical elements that we have going on, but for now, please enjoy. Thank you.
Moenie so rond staan nie. Hulle het laat weer die seremonie is verby. Die gaste gaan nou hier wees.
Nou, en almal gaan vrek van die honger. Wie neem 2 ure lank troufoto's?
'n Mens vrek nie van die honger nie, net te duur. Toe kom van jou selfoon af.
Nou stonk jy alweer die trougaste.
Is jou eie lewe so boring?
Man, shut up jy net en sorg dat jy nie weer al die glase breek nie.
Wat sal maar net weer die loon.
Ja, ba.
Wie is die help gou hier? Stefan gaan kry nog glas. Ons het 40 nodig met so 5 ekstra.
Ja, hulle sê dis dringend.
Wanneer is dit nooit nie dringend nie? Hallo? Hallo? Ja.
Ja! Die boks het gegly. Jy hoef nooit niks reg doen. Nou, eintlik moet jy op my seer. Man, as jy dom is, moet jy dom swaar kry. Jy op so pussy wees, man.
Goed, ek maak so, dankie. Hoeveel glase het jy gebreek? Ma?
4 diere was 'n klein boksie.
O, jy laat val nooit 'n rugbybal nie, ha? Ma! Judas verklaag.
Nou, why? Hoe weet jy dit?
Daar is blykbaar 'n video-documentary op YouTube oor rape survivors en daar's 'n klip van Jude daarin.
Wat sê sy?
Ek weet nie, 'n vriendin het dit nou net vir my aangestuur.
Jude, soos Erik se meisie.
Ex-meisie. Sy het jou broer se hart gebreek.
Maak dan nie so oor praat nie.
Ja, ek wil nooit ding soos ek vir die kinders praat.
Stefan, ek dink jy moet jou breek vat.
Ek wil kyk.
Stefan, die glas.
Ek was baie lief vir hom, dus ek was, ek denk, ons is bij elkaar om te bekleiden in huis gegaan. Dat was niet van drama, van breek gehad. Hij werkt niet. Hy het my gesê ek gaan my lyspaper bring en dat ek net fyne is. Ek wou nooit weer dan dieselfde ding nie kyk na daai man nie.
Kom jy tog net ma, sy het niks in die video oor Eric gesê nie. Ja, sy het gesê haar laaste kerel. Vinnige kykie op Facebook en enige iemand kan sien is hy. Mind you, met hoe sy aangetrek het, wie weet hoeveel boyfriend sy tussenin gehad het. Maar
is Jude weer die rekenmeester of die met die rooi bril?
die kunststudent met die kort broekies en die seunshemde. Pierre, kan jy tog net bybly? Sy het vir ons gewaitress, dis hoe hulle mekaar ontmoet het.
Ja, ek het altyd gesê met die staf beter.
Eric het nie met haar gepeter nie, hulle was verlief, enigiemand kon dit sien.
Met die drop soms is 'n warm patat.
Het jy vir Eric in die hande gekry? Ah nee, hy antwoord glad nie. Bel weer. Wat, ek wil dit tog nie uitken nie. Hoe kan jy so iets sê? Nou maar wat wil hom so dringend in die hande kry as dit nie is om hom daaroor te vra nie. Met sy naam skoon hou. Hy het 'n beurs. Hy wag om te hoor van die internskappe. Ek gaan nie dat daai klein meisietjie alles vir hom opvoeter nie. Jude het nie eers sy naam genoem nie.
Dis ook maar goed so. Ons sal voor hof gesleep. Dis naamskending. Nee, miskien kan ons nog steeds doen. Ons weet mos ons kind groot gemaak het, man. 'n Man slaan nie aan 'n meisiekind nie. Ek het dit vir hom geleer.
Ons moet net kop hou. Rustig. Rustig raak. Ryan, bel maar die prokureur. En nou? Ek dacht maar sê daar's niks om oor te worry nie. Oh, voorsorg is altyd beter as naas. En wat van Jude? Wat van Jude? Sy het nie geld vir 'n prokureur nie, ma. Dit nie ons het. Sy is nie my kind nie. Ek sê jou ma nie, ek het sorg vir my eie kind. Jou kleinkind was eens op 'n tyd mal oor haar. Maar ook. Ons almal was. Ons almal was, maar bloed bly bloed. Sy het my kind se hart gebreek. Nie jou koppie vol snaakse idees kan.
Mevrou Verdoorn, duidelik asseblief weer jou konsep vir my.
Wel, ek het gedink aan hoe vroue 'n onewe hoeveelheid werk in 'n huishouding het. Beide emosioneel en fisies.
Die skilderye is op sigself uitstekend, die swart verf. Maar ons het nodig dat jy altyd seker feministiese temas aanpak. Die derde of jy moet kry. Is daar nie 'n ander interessante sake wat jou interesseer nie?
Jy? My broer het net gebel om te kom kry. Jude, is jy reg? Ja, wat het daar gevaar? Lyk my Eric hou van die dramatiese tipe.
Ek het gedink die skilderye is iets anders. Dis 'n nuwe verfstyl vir my.
Mevrou Verdoorn, wat gaan met jou? Die 2 weke se klasse kom ons al jou werk is af. Dis nie die Jude wat ek ken wat hier voor my sit en nie haar idees verdedig nie. Wat gaan? Iets by die huis gebeur?
Nee, prof.
I'm so scared, I can't stop having visions of following them. Gonna make it work, gonna make it work. But I don't know how to do that with the framework. If you never violate,
Sure. Ek gewoonlik sal ek die vraag vra tipe van jy weet waar kom jou navorsing vandaan en al daai tipe van dinge is so onderwerp. Maar ek dink dit is duidelik dat dit daagliks iets is waarmee jy te doen het. Ek dink dit is 'n ongelooflike moeilike vraag om te antwoord. Want daar is nie antwoord nie en dit is wat die en my vraag sou wees binne die toneelstuk en dis al vraag wat ek nou gaan vra en dan moet ek ook nog graag vir bespreking. Is binne die toneelstuk en soos wat dit verloop, wat is jy wat wil jy daardeur wat is jou ek kan as die antwoord ek weet dit is nie noodwendig 'n antwoord wat jy wil gee nie, maar wat is daai wat jou kernvraag is jy weet wat maak 'n rapist? Wat is daai en hoe benader jy dit in die res van die toneelstuk? Dit was nie heeltemal vir my duidelik Uittreksel natuurlik. Ja, sê dit gedeelte daarvan.
Ja, so hierdie is omtrent die eerste 10 bladsye. So regtig ek benader die vraag uit die oogpunt van die Suid-Afrikaanse, spesifiek die Afrikaanse gesin. Wat is dit in ons Suid-Afrikaanse kultuur wat maak dat hierdie so 'n probleem vir ons is? Is dit 'n kulturele ding? Is dit 'n religieuse ding? Waar kom dit vandaan? So ons kyk na baie verskillende elemente en die karakters vra hulle self daai vraag. Mens kan nou dink as jy eintlik jou seun het iemand gevra wat se vraag vra jy jouself? Het ek nie genoeg met hom Bybel gelees nie? Wat het ek gedoen? Wat kan ons anders doen? So dit is glad nie 'n idee om te sê dat ek die antwoord het nie. Dit is glad nie dit. Hoe vra ons die vraag van where does this rape culture that we have, where does it come from? What influences it and what maintains it? And if we want to start somewhere, to start dismantling it, where do we start?
And where are you just asking the questions in the play, or is it is there a secular antwoord wat jy gee, van jou perspectief of die research wat jy in jou opinie daaroor?
So definitely, I think that the characters themselves, die karakters, hulle vra baie van my vrae aan hulle self. En ek dink elke karakter het hulle eie antwoord. Elke karakter praat met 'n baie spesifieke oogpunt uit. En dis hoe man gekies het om 'n jong dogter te hê, die ma die pa wat eintlik die patriargale verteenwoordig en dan die jong seun Stefan. So elkeen van hulle praat met hulle eie oogpunt uit en dan is Jude se oogpunt ook as die survivor. So elkeen van hulle praat met hulle eie oogpunt uit. So dis is dit vir die gehoor om te besluit met wie hulle saamstem, wie se kant van hulle kies in this kind of courts of public opinion.
Okay. So you're putting out different opinions there, and ultimately it's for an audience to look at the different arguments. Ek gaan dit ook maak vir een kommentaar. I think it's right at the back.
Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you very, very much for that presentation. I was enthralled, not just visually, but with the text as well. And I think you're speaking to very pertinent topics, not just to South Africans, but to the human condition. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate because this is something that Hugo mentioned to Qondiswa, earlier on. And with you dealing with such a human, very, very, very cathartic, very sensitive, issue. It's a play, it's a topic that could work well in Afrikaans, in English, in Xhosa, in Zulu, Pedi, Tswana, I could go on. So this is a personal question, actually. As opposed to writing it in, those other languages, obviously, maybe you can't write in Xhosa. I think I'm speaking now to target audience, perhaps, with it, being able to work in the multiple languages. What was your thought process behind, it being delivered in Afrikaans, with it dealing with, again, such a touchy, issue, especially in my culture, in Black culture, toxic masculinity and men being angry about unemployment and blah, blah, blah is rife, which then, leads to physical and sexual violence. So yeah, that's my question.
Good question.
It's an excellent question. Thank you for that. And I can see it's already resonating, thinking about things like toxic masculinity. I think in the Afrikaans culture, we have our own form of toxic masculinity. And I had a professor who advised me once, and she said, a project will tell you what language it wants to be written in. And this project, it wanted to be in Afrikaans, I think. I would love to translate it. I think that would be so much fun to think about what that would look like in different cultures. To, you know, take the same characters and really speak it into different viewpoints, put it in a different cultural context. I think that would be so interesting. But for me, this is a play that really demanded to be in Afrikaans.
Tracy? No. You don't have to comment, just if you've got a comment. Tracy there.
Thanks for writing this. I mean, it's a topic that's I've also spent a lot of time researching, and it's very close to my heart. I like that it's not a preachy play. I like that it doesn't give the answers, and it doesn't have any kind of like obvious villains, although, I mean, you would think that a rapist is, but in this instance, I don't think he comes across automatically, as most rapists are. I was curious about the title, which I wanted to ask you about, and why you chose the female, the rape survivor to be in the arts. And then just to your opening thing, when you say about, like, you know, women don't worry, mothers don't worry about their sons. I think a lot of mothers do worry. I think, you know, it's almost inevitable that your daughter will be raped. You just hope that your son doesn't become a rapist. But I think the way that you lay it out is really, you know, really like kind of well-rounded family characters as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think the title Terpentyn, it comes from the idea of what does it take to wash yourself clean? So you will notice the female characters in the play, they all have, in this case it was black powder, working within the constraints of the theatre, but black paint on their hands. So it plays with the idea of who is guilty, who has blood on their hands essentially, and also with what does it take to become clean? What does it take to wash yourself? When I work with survivors a lot, oftentimes they'll say, I just want to feel at home in my body, I just want to feel clean again. So that's where that came written from. And then Jude being an art student, I think I project a little bit, being in the creative field. I think a lot of my characters always end up being in creative spaces and creative jobs. And then when they feel frustrated by their craft, I don't feel as bad. But as the play progresses, her struggle is to cope with what has happened, and then she puts that pain towards her art. So that is what she does, and that is her project. In the back, you would have seen a washing line, and that is a hint to the end of the play, where we end on her third-year project for art exhibition, which at this point she's very struggling with. And she hangs up the clothing that she was wearing the night of her assault. To really ask what was she wearing, you know. And every key point in the play, one of the clothing items she was wearing is hung up. And so that kind of is our evidence base as we go around this court of public opinion. So it's working on that kind of metaphor. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I've got one, and it's also a little bit devil's advocate, and it links to the question you asked, I think. Is there a difference? I mean, there's an essence of, I'm trying to word this. What is the difference between, if you say this needs to be an Afrikaans play, and it needs to be, you know, it's dealing with the issue of male toxicity in an Afrikaans world. Is there, I mean, what are those differences between whether it is men in South Africa, men in America, whether it is between different, I mean, isn't there an essence to this? Or is there a difference, and have you in your kind of research found that there is a difference in that?
That is an excellent question. And if you don't stop me, I'll talk for a couple of hours. But I'll keep it short. I'll keep it short and sweet. So working with clients, like I do, a client will often say, in my culture. And then they'll explain, in my culture, this is the ritual, this is what we believe. And then I will share, well, in my culture, we have a similar belief, we have a similar practice, never entirely the same, but there is something universal about the female experience. There's something universal about wanting to keep your child safe. There's something universal about wondering about the culture that you're in and the way it's impacting your children. So definitely I think that there are universal elements into it, which is why I think it can transcend that language. But for me, because I know that it's a sensitive topic, I know it's the topic that's going to bring out the devil's advocate, it's going to ask me to have to answer for a lot of things. I decided that I live and breathe and work in the Afrikaans community a lot. And so I decided that I'm the most familiar with that value structure. I'm most familiar with that as a frame of reference. And so I really wanted to ground it in that. And so it really felt like it had a solid base to work from.
That's a clear answer. Thank you. I think theatre is there to deal with exactly topics like this, and we need to investigate through theatre. So I do hope that you can develop this, and especially because it is your field, and that you can bring it to the stage and ask the questions, and also again, kind of open it up to an audience and to the right audiences to have the conversation, because that's what it needs to do.
Yes, absolutely. I want everyone to, in the car on the ride home, when you come home from a play, you discuss everything, and sometimes you're like, that was very weird, I didn't understand what was happening. But I want those conversations to happen. I want them to happen in families, I want them to happen in boardrooms, I want them to happen everywhere that they can happen, because that's how we get started. It's by asking the right questions. Thank you.
Bye, dankie.
Dankie.
Dankie. Dankie allemaal. We gaan naar het projectplan. Ons is weer 2 uur terug en met die volgende sessie. En ja, daar is, jullie kan lekker daar buiten is daar verpakking en koffie en allerlei dingen wat je kan kopen en doen. Ons zien jullie weer 2 uur. Bye, dankie.